What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of Vital MTB's new podcast show we are calling Bikes Unaffiliated. This is going to be our spot to chat about bike-related topics that aren't necessarily focused on current events, racing. We're not going to be interviewing people. It's kind of here to chat about bikes, have a conversation. Hopefully it's something that's entertaining to listen to. So episode number 1, topic is embargoes. Why do we have embargoes for new bikes? And are they effective, needed, or could they be better? I'm Jason Schroeder. If you don't recognize my voice or you're not watching this, I'm a tech editor at Vital. And joining me on this conversation is Shawn Spomer, who is our content director. Then we also have Lars Sternberg, owner and operator of Flowcraft MTB.
Woo, woo.
How are you guys doing today?
Awesome. Doing good. Stoked
right,
to have
yeah.
Lars on here. Haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah,
too.
I'm honored. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.
Of course. I have a note that says, this intro is way more official than I want this conversation to be. So I think we need to start this off before we get into this conversation about embargoes with Lars. You were at Transition for a really long time. This intro, if we did this just a couple months ago, would have been Lars from Transition Bikes. And
Right.
we need to give you an inside line. We're going to go through your whole story at some point, but maybe give the quick spark notes on your background and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely would have been a lot different a couple months ago. Been an interesting 6 months, just kind of getting back into being a normal human being, not affiliated with a brand, which has been a fun process. Yeah, and bikes have always been a part of my life, of many variations, and they've given me fundamentally my life, which is I'm super eternally grateful for. Yeah, I'll just kind of keep it at that. That's why I'm here, I guess. Been around bikes forever. So
I was thinking about this, and maybe we've talked about Lars, but I think the first time I met you was when you came down to Decline, and we went to G-Spot to shoot, like you and Simon Lawton. I was thinking, like, dude, that was 20 years ago. It's crazy how long that's been. You were on Fluid Ride, right? And you're on an
yes,
on a Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yep, riding for Simon. And that I don't think he was there. I was down there with Mark from Contour.
Oh yeah, Contour. Yeah, remember those?
Yep.
Okay.
Contour HD.
Yeah. High def POV cameras.
Yeah, totally.
Well, nice. Yeah, we're gonna do an inside line at some point. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, we did do one, but it's been years, right? Is that what the story was, or have we never done one? I can't
Never
remember.
with Lars. We've been.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told him I'll do
Talking
one.
about it forever.
Yeah.
Keep
for
threatening
years.
me.
Yep.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Well, I've had this idea of doing this podcast for a little bit. Spomer and I've chatted about it a bunch, and just putting it out there that this will probably evolve with time. But one of the ideas I've had is like, it'd be cool to have sections that we do every time we do a podcast. So I came up with this idea called Highkey, lowkey, where we each come to the table before we get into the topic for this show of what was one thing cool we saw last week and one thing that was kind of whack we saw last week. This can be video content, something that happened in life, interaction you had, kind of whatever. I can kick it off if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so my Highkey, my good things from last week was Fast and Loose BMX, their new video maggots.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the first bike-related video I've watched the whole thing this year. It just was like no filler clips, insane riding, good music. BMX is the sickest. I will say the link you sent me for that GNU video, which I'm wondering if I'm stealing your video, you might say.
No, that would be in there though.
That new GNU video, I'm not going to try to say the name, but 16 mil, good music again, sick snowboard video.
Tim Zimmerman in the credits, always good.
Oh, Tim Zim.
Yeah.
And I would say low-key is being sick. I was sick last week. And like, if anybody listened to B practice this past year, I lost my voice for like 2.5 months. And I lost my voice again this weekend for like 4 to 8 hours. And it was a dark 4 to 8 hours. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening again. But I think I'm on the up and up. I've been like really blowing some snot rockets this morning. So yeah, what you guys got?
Lars, you want to go ahead?
Sure. I don't know if this is high key or low key, but it's interesting. I've had a couple conversations about the whole 32-inch wheel thing in the past couple weeks, and it's interesting. Like, I think having been around long enough to have gone through the phases of like 26 to 27.5, 27.5 to 29, all those changes becoming commonplace. I'm just kind of blasé about it. You know, people are like, "Oh, I can't believe it," you know, all this, and I'm just kind of like, I'm indifferent. You know, it's like, well, it's obviously coming, so whatever. You know, I might not have personal interest in it, but it's like, yeah, whatever, don't care, cool, just another thing.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna stop it. It's here.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess another, I don't know, well, I guess we'll call this Highkey, and this is a bit more personal related. We installed hot water, outside water at our house yesterday, which I've been wanting to do for years here, and is a like lifesaver living in the Pacific Northwest.
I bet.
Being able to unload your bike and gear and just like hose your bike down and not have your hands freezing. And then also just not feeling weird about turning the hose on yourself and then spraying it down. Our last house, we had a pretty sick little outdoor shower situation with hot water bike wash. And I mean, that is like a total game changer. It literally, it changes your bike life, because like those days where you're like, oh, I don't want to go out, specifically for the reason of the amount of cleanup that you have to do and how miserable it is. You're like, oh, I can just come back and be warm while I do that. So
damn,
pretty stoked.
That's a luxury.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, is it my turn?
Go for it.
All right, high key. I'm changing my answer. The GNU was in there. That was a good one. But I just saw last night, what's it called? Have you guys heard of the Fire Starter Crew? Seems like some young crew.
No.
It looks like they're from Canada. They put a video out called Third Degree. And I think the thumbnail was just like some giant tagging thing kind of going on. I'm like, why do they keep recommending this? Like, what is this? I couldn't tell what it was. Okay. So I clicked on it. I'm like, okay, there's some tagging. Like, oh, there's some mountain bikes in it. And it took me 2 or 3 or 4 minutes to figure out if this video was from 2003 or from now. And it's a crew of kids that's now. It was from now. It's so cool. Like,
epic.
They're like Canadian free ride skidders, big old booters and cam loops, and they even do like remember the TV show Drop In? Like, Jason, I don't know, was this before your time?
Oh yeah,
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
But like, I think they visited some old spots, like this old fence ride, and kind of recreated a scene from Drop In. So just to see all these kids out there shredding, their jeans are gigantic, their bars are like this big because they're like free ride slopestyle kids. Like, it was super cool to see. So what is it, the Fire Starter Crew, if that's what they're called? That was the high for sure. And then low light, low key is just seasons. At least here in Idaho, like, days get short, it gets cold, and I get mega blues for sure. And I was able to get out a couple times, and it rained and got some fun dirt on the rut track here at the bike park nearby and stuff, but it's just cold, and it's that like, oh, it's 41 and overcast, and just I don't know, it's one of those, it's hard to get motivated to go out. So just trying to make that transition. And this is the time of year when I always start looking at like, oh, what kind of trips can I plan to SoCal? I think Jason and I have to meet up for something, right? So starting to do that, but
there's always something.
Yeah,
the daydreaming commences.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's too cold to ride, but it's not snowing yet. It's like the worst.
Totally.
It was my least favorite time of the year in Boise, for sure.
Yep.
Dude, I almost forgot that I was going to put down Lars's video he posted last week of like, when was it? Like early 2000s, your Sponsor Me tape? So what made me think of it is when you were saying the video you were watching, Spomer, where you're like, I couldn't tell if this was 2003 or 2025. That's how I felt watching your video, just based on like the clothes you were watching, Lars, or wearing, Lars. Like, because
I know.
it's so in again that I was
It
like,
is, totally.
this is crazy. This doesn't even look that retro minus like the bike and kind of like the quality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was
I
epic.
think the big difference there, and like the one way that you can determine the actual era from like what's in vogue right now is I'm wearing like the super puffy Osiris shoes, style shoes, whereas like kids are straight slip-ons now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the slip-ons are so bold. One of our good friends was riding in Santa Cruz all weekend in slip-ons, and I'm like, I know there's no rocks here really, but like, dude, you slip a pedal casing a jump and like your toes are gone. It's just, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
contact though. It's that like, you know,
I get
that's
it.
it's like the next best thing to barefoot. You're like,
It's true.
you're hooked in, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember racing and Vans was like the shoe,
Yeah.
like croupy bear traps in Vans. Like that's it.
So
Yeah.
ballsy.
Yeah.
I'll do it on my dirt jumper. That's about it. But every time I get back on my dirt jumper, I'm like, this does feel so good. Like you're just that little bit more connected. All right.
Cool.
Embargoes. Everyone's like, it sounds like a super boring ass topic. But
Embargo.
embargo.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, look at you, Gordo embargo.
I thought of that this morning. I'm like, oh, is it embargo? Sorry.
I didn't see that in the title.
I know we were talking about this before. Like, is this going to be 5 minutes? Is this going to be an hour-long conversation? Who cares? Let's find out. But I'm going to start this off with I think you put this in there, Spomer, the Wikipedia definition of an embargo.
Oh, okay.
Is that what this is? Just to lay it out there in case someone's like, I don't even know what this means. But the gist of it is it's when there's a product announcement, embargo is an agreement when a company shares information about a new product, people like ourselves, journalists, before the official launch date of that product, with the understanding that they're not going to publish any news until a predetermined time. This allows Vital, Pink Bike, other publications to prepare their stories in advance, ensure that all the coverage goes live simultaneously to maximize impact, control the company's message. I thought was an interesting aspect to this definition, because I feel like that's something that we're always balancing. Maybe we'll get into. And then it says violating embargo can result in loss of future access to information. So, I mean, we can start this however we want, but I thought this was interesting because we live our lives a lot with embargoes and brands hitting us up, generally being like, hey, we have this new thing coming later this year. This is the date it's launching on. And then we are reactive and kind of plan accordingly. There might be a press camp involved, and maybe just opens a conversation for, is this the most impactful way to launch product to consumers? I mean, my first question is like, what's the normal vibe of how new product is embargoed? I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I don't know if, Lars, you wanted to maybe touch on from like a brand perspective to kick this off with how you guys wait out when you're at transition, having an embargo, launching a product, everything that comes with that.
Product embargoes are kind of a necessary evil, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. Like you have to get the product out there, you have to get the information out there. From a brand's perspective, it could be a high stress thing. There's a lot of self-doubt about the thing you're putting out there. I don't know how deep you want me to go right now with that aspect of it, but yeah,
I want to hear it all.
I am curious. Like if you guys are, say you were looking at 25 and there's like 2 bikes on the list that's the focus. Where do you even start with like, we're going to launch the bike on this date? And like if you say that date is in the future, what kind of falls in place before that maybe we never see, and it's hard for us to understand why a date's picked?
Yeah. Well, I'll frame this first with like the ideal scenario would be you have your product development in timelines all so dialed that you're able to pick, like when you go into development of a project or in the concept stage, you're like, you have it all mapped out and you're like, okay, this portion of to get to here and here and here, it all takes this long. and the product would potentially get launched at this date. That's like accounting for all product delivery, all of the things, and then you can target that in the right time year for that product. That's ideal. From my experience, it never works like that. You're always kind of like off the back. And I don't know if there's any brand out there that's actually able to do it. That would be the ideal scenario. So in most cases, you're kind of stuck with like, okay, not even knowing exactly what time the product will be available, when you'll be inventoried enough to be able to like sell it on the date of launch. So, I mean, there's so many things that can come into play, all sorts of delays, manufacturing delays, delivery delays, especially like through COVID, like when shipping product from overseas to like North America typically would be like six weeks to get it to your warehouse, could have been lengthened to like it's 4 months now, plus minus a month or two on either end, so like it makes it really challenging to schedule around or to plan. And so a lot of times that can creep up to a month or two before having confirmation that you're actually going to have the product. So you don't it makes it really challenging to like schedule all of the necessary activities around all of that, which is like marketing materials, all the assets that you need to provide media, all of those things. It makes it really challenging, and it can be really, really, the anticipation is like palpable, and also, like the self-doubt, of like, is this thing going to go over as well as I hope, and like, then you introduce things like the forum message boards and stuff post launch, and you get to dive in there, and it's like, oh man, like all those aspects are part of it from a brand's perspective. So it's a fun process, high stress, and ever challenging.
Yeah, it's the self-doubt thing's interesting because I don't know why, but that would never have occurred to me that you've been working on a bike, for instance, for 2 years and it's time to put it out, that you might think maybe this isn't the bike that should come out now, or how are people going to receive it? That's a really interesting, facet that I'd never thought about. And then, you were at a bike brand. It seems like historically we've noticed a lot of bikes come out the same time as a component launch, like transmission comes out or something, and a bunch of new bikes are going to have transmission. So it's kind of like you have a series of brands that are impacted by a certain embargo. Like, was that hard to navigate?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge consideration in your, embargo date timeline, where you could be midway through a project, a big project like a bike release, and then partway through that project receive notification of a new component, coming, that's going to be somewhere around the same time, but it's like, say that product comes out or is going to come out 2 months later than your ideal launch timeline, but you really want to have that product on your bike, then you are like, well, you kind of weigh the pros and cons. Like, do you launch that bike and then do like a running change of component, like 2 months downstream of launch, or do you delay the timeline of your launch, but then you introduce things like sitting on inventory for X amount of time, I mean, there's so many layers of it, so many aspects to weigh it. I mean, it is extremely challenging. I'm really thankful to not have to be a part of that anymore, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the amount of time consumed related to meetings around all of those little aspects, like every brand deals with that.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. I mean, it's cool to hear. I kind of have picked this up over the years going to press camps and visiting brands like Transition and just hearing everything that goes into it. And it's so stressful seeming to me because it all builds up to like this one day launch. And that's something I think about a lot because, you know, for our own sake, when we put out a review of a new bike, there's also going to be a review and coverage on Pink Bike and SMB and a bunch of other publications. And we're kind of, then we end up sort of competing for those views or eyes or however you want to look at it. But it almost, I start to question how, Spomer talk all the time, like how impactful is this for us to just be caught up in the noise on this one day and then the following day, everybody kind of is over it or it's kind of gone. And like, is there a better way? And maybe I'm thinking about it too much from like the brand's perspective. Like, is there like a better way to have this thing you've worked on for years hit more with people instead of it just being like, it almost feels like when things come out now, people's reaction is to be like critical of it and like kind of cynical instead of like celebrating that there's like the new version of something. Like people immediately want to like poke holes in whatever the new thing is. And I don't know if that's because it is built up to be like, we have the new latest, greatest, whatever, and like here it is, and everybody's talking about it. I feel like people maybe immediately feel like their back's against the wall to be like, well, it's actually not that good, and this is why, and this is what I think, versus, yeah, I don't know, like the reception seems interesting sometimes, and like I've definitely thought a lot about if having embargoes leaked by brands intentionally, maybe not leaked the wrong word, but like shared publicly, being like, let's say Specialized has a new Enduro. What if they were like, December 15th, the new Enduro is coming. Everybody get excited. Like, we can't wait to show this off to everybody. We've been working on it for like 10 fucking years, you know, here it is. We finally have it. But I'm like, would that not like allow the people who actually care that a new Enduro is coming to get excited and ready? Everybody who maybe like isn't that interested, they hear about it, and then the day it launches, like maybe they tune in, maybe they don't, but there maybe isn't this like tidal wave of like feeling like you have to care about this new thing hitting consumers. I don't know. It's a thought.
Yeah, no,
thought I had early this morning.
It's really interesting. I actually have a couple bits of input there on both of those aspects or topics. For one, like I think, and this is maybe not necessarily my personal take on it, but definitely from a brand's perspective, like ideally, if you had infinite budget, you could custom tailor like your when you host media for a product launch, you could custom tailor each one of those little sessions or weeks or however long it is fully for each media outlet individually, and provide like a slightly, you know, you provide all of the necessary information, but each experience is a little different, you know, so it's custom tailored, you know, it's unique. That would be ideal, but it's just not, it's not feasible, you know. I mean, the amount of cost involved with doing something like that is challenging, and a lot of times you're like I said, you're already like kind of off the back, you're like always playing catch up, so like doing rinse and repeat is like way easier and more streamlined than like a customized package.
Makes sense.
The other thing is like okay, so I was thinking about this the other day, like take your comment about why not mention that something is coming. Like you look at a brand like Apple, for example, you know, like when they have a new iPhone coming out, you know it's coming, right? They say it's getting launched on this date, right? But I think you're working in a totally different economic scale there with a product like that, where like bikes are a lot more, especially mountain bikes, are a lot more niche. You know, your pool is so much smaller that like you're trying to like capture a very small audience, you know? And so the this is where the necessary evil part comes into play, is like you're kind of like, hate to use the term, but you can kind of bastardize the product that you already have in market. Like if you say there's a new one of these coming out, then people are going to be like, oh, why would I
Yeah.
why would I buy the one that's available right now when I know the one is coming? Like, and I think that's the fear. I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
I think there's some degree where that's actual, but like, and not that I agree with that, because I definitely lean towards the like, give your customers the most information you possibly can to make the smartest buying decision or purchasing decision. But like, I don't know if that's actually feasible, but those are my.
Because in a way, if you have dealers that are sitting on, we'll call it old inventory, they're going to get hosed when the new one comes out, right? So it's like, yeah, you want to think about the customer, but dealers are important too, and they're the ones committed to the sport by being a dealer. So it seems like a tricky balance, and I mean, it's probably a whole different can of worms, but it's almost like like you talk about enduro, Jason, like it's been so long, and it doesn't seem like there'd be any issue with like Specialized coming out and saying on March 15th, an enduro is coming out, and the anticipation would be there. There's probably not really any old stock sitting around, and that would be cool. So is it a matter of like product life cycles being too short before something new has to come out? But I'm not trying to go down that road, but yeah, it seems like such a difficult thing to try and balance as a brand.
Take that aspect of it, and regardless of like whatever direction you could choose to take with that, the bandwidth, like implementing a strategy with like, take the dealers, for example, like trying to like develop a strategy, whether you're going to announce something early or not, even just in like using the typical embargo date timeline, like implementing a strategy to get your dealers tooled up and educated for everything to be in line with just the current template is like almost insurmountable, especially for like smaller brands. Like it is so much work. So trying to like, if you take a different approach and you're like, let's like announce this early, but then still give customers options to buy what's currently in market, what you currently have in your inventory, like that's like even more complex. And just that one aspect, like the whole strategy aspect, is like that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know we totally always hear about not trying to leave dealers with a bunch of bikes that are now old, right? By like having a new bike that comes out. And I've kind of always wondered, this probably is an unrealistic ask or expectation, but like, could it be built into the process of creating a new bike, like letting dealers know when the new bike's coming and giving them a year, 6 months to sell through? Or like, I'm sure it's so much more complex, but that's always been my like gut reaction. That's probably not thinking super deep on it, is like, well, if there's just a bit more like effort put up front to like make sure brands aren't sitting on a bunch of the old bike. But I guess that requires a heck of a lot of communications with who knows how many dealers you might have in your network.
For sure. And having reliable timelines. Like it's hard to implement something like that when, a lot of times a year out, you still have like, it's like throwing darts, seriously, like you're a year out, you're like, this could go any number of ways, like your end date is still so fluctuating. It's like, and a lot of times you don't even have, other than a conversation, you don't have anything to share.
Yeah. At what point do you pick a date? Like if there's so many moving pieces, generally it seems like we know, say maybe roughly 2 months in advance before something's coming out, give or take. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. A lot of times it's usually with the understanding that it could change, but like most brands, Transition included, was pretty good at like, we're going to kind of hold this date. And I guess by the time you pick a date, you've probably decided that you don't have too much risk of like not hitting it.
Yeah. I want to be a little careful here because, I mean, there's a lot that I could go into that's kind of like sensitive information,
Yeah.
you know, and I want to be respectful of transition, you know, and
For sure.
not divulge anything that I shouldn't.
Totally.
But what I can say to that is that as Vital, representatives of Vital, you guys you guys received information as early as possible.
hmm
Let's put it that way.
Yep.
So, you know, yeah. So I don't know. I guess that kind of lays it out. You know, like
yeah.
so. It could get up to like 6 weeks ahead of time before you actually know when it's coming.
Yeah.
hmm
So
It seemed like there's kind of like sea otter season is pretty typical, but were there seasons that or times of the year that were kind of consistently aimed for?
yeah, I mean, to have a product like a bike in market in the Northern Hemisphere, spring is ideal because that's when people are gearing up to buy a new bike for the season. But then you have like the dealer network to consider, you know, and you want to like preload dealers, make sure they have product available for people to go buy bikes from, because it's not just transitions was or is kind of versatile in that way where it's omni-channel. Like you could buy online direct from the manufacturer, you could buy through a dealer. So that takes time, you know, like the dealers would need to kind of like take product, like speaking just for the Northern Hemisphere, you know, in the winter months, you know, to be preloaded for the spring summer season. But that means that they have to like devote some capital to getting getting inventoried up, basically, which is challenging. And in the winter months, a lot of bike shops are, you know, they don't have that.
Damn. What? All right. So turns out embargoes are way harder than I ever anticipated, or picking when they are.
Yeah.
What? If you think back on, you know, the multiple launches you were a part of, what maybe would you do different, or just embargoes in general? Like, what are maybe some areas you were like, this could probably be done better across the board, not just maybe looking at necessarily things you did in the past, but like where is mountain biking maybe missing it with trying to, the goal is just to build excitement around a new thing and like have it hit at a time that's meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, the process is fun. Like it was something that I got a lot of enjoyment out of, which is like sharing the new thing with people ahead of time. You know, that's kind of like step one, you know, working with media in lead up to actually putting it out in the world publicly. That's kind of like your first taste of like, what's the response like, you know, where that's where that anticipation and like self-doubt kind of gets like, it could go any direction, you know? And you know, I mean, I think it's pretty understood. Like Transition, for example, is not like one of the biggest bike companies, so you had like limited budgets to work with, so you had to get creative with like how to do that. So it was a lot more hands-on. And I don't know, I'll take a step back and just like hearing things over the years about like how other brands did things, you know, like investing how many thousands, tens or more thousands of dollars on just a video to go with a product launch, you know, and which has happened in Bellingham, you know, like there are a lot of trails that have been used in Bellingham that other brands have shot product videos on. And I've heard what they spent on just that video is like unfathomable. You know, that's like so far beyond the scale of like the entire product launch investment, you know. And so yeah, I don't know, my moral compass kind of doesn't agree with that. Like it just,
Mm.
I don't know. And a lot of that I think comes from being at transition where you had to be a lot more creative, and spend your money wisely. And I don't I don't necessarily agree with like the wastefulness of like how much money is spent on the whole process in general.
Mm-hmm.
I
Interesting.
think it's a pretty widespread, and I think there's like some degree of like keeping up with the Benjamins, like
Mm-hmm.
X brand does this, and I will call this out because it was like very close to being on my what was the opening?
You're low key.
Yeah, the lowkey was the YT launch, the whole Christopher Walken thing,
Mhm.
like it's like that is like so unnecessary, and maybe in somebody's bubble that seemed like, oh, the best idea ever, but like really, like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean we're dealing with toys. you know
It's true.
so like I don't know, keep that money in the bank and use it elsewhere.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it seems like it's. I mean, I remember times at Vital. This is probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now. But when there would be an embargo lift, and we didn't have a scheduler on our back end, I'd be sitting there like, and it almost felt like a race run. Like, okay, I've prepared. I've checked all this stuff. This is good to go. I got to hit the embargo lift button so we can be first or close to first. And now
Uh-huh.
it's, whether it's leaked or teased or whatever, social media is out there. It seems like the kind of mystery of everything
Mm-hmm.
is a lot different than it used to be, and the
Mhm.
surprise of something coming out isn't the same. And Lars, you're speaking to these massive video budgets and things like that. It doesn't seem like that's necessary to some degree. And I understand that brands are making expensive videos and they're going to use assets from those shoots like throughout the whole life cycle of that product. Like they'll use that footage. It's more than just here's the video for one day. But at the same time, are you going to get better reach if it looks like someone filmed something on an iPhone and slapped it onto Instagram and it'll go more viral than a
Mhm.
really polished, produced type of content? I, I don't know. That's really interesting to hear you talk about the responsibility of kind of the budget putting behind a product launch.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I think we're at a interesting time socially in general, like with our society, where I think that I wouldn't say people are getting smarter, but they're becoming like a little more adept at seeing the forest through the trees, so to speak. And the big box mentality, I think, is kind of on its way out.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that necessarily just towards bikes, but just like the big box consumerism. I think people are getting disenfranchised with it a little bit, and a little bit more intrigued by like small business, and that consumerism approach can translate to um, digital forms, like you see it with the kids, right? Like they're like these like uh, the 16 mil films. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
we're gravitating toward that type of thing because that's like, I mean, it's a bit in vogue. It's becoming in vogue again now. But also, it's like, yeah, that only like the whole dad cam thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of like media and content. It's like, well, it seems fresh now, even though it's it's from a couple decades ago.
Yeah.
That's all we had. But like people are gravitating. I would like to think that people are gravitating more towards that type of content, and um, the like meat behind that is that people are seeing. I would like to think that people would appreciate a more smartly dedicated use of resources
Mm.
than just like the big box type of approach.
Interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems more genuine. And if you like for me, tying it back to like a product launch and an embargo and something getting launched on a certain date, like people can kind of read through and realize that, oh, Vital and all these other media people went to Europe and clearly it looked like it cost a lot of money. And sure, they're going to say something good about the bike. And oh, they only rode it for 2 days and they're saying something good about the bike. And like it kind of, you can start to poke holes in it really quick, right? And like I'm aware of that when we are trying to decide whether or not how we are going to be involved with a brand launching something new on a given date. You know, like we talk about that more now than when I first started. Originally, it was just like, oh, you know, so and so has this new thing and they invited us to it. It's like, okay, Jason, you're going to it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I guess this is what we do. I'm going to it. Where now it's like, yeah, and you know, and selfishly, it's like, this is awesome. I get to like maybe go somewhere and get to meet people from a brand and like learn a bunch and like try to really tell a story in our own voice and all of that. And then it seems like that isn't hitting like it once did, which maybe kind of feeds into that whole people can kind of notice that a lot of money behind it. And maybe that is, I feel like that isn't really super core, you know, like we are like past the COVID rush of introducing a lot of new users to mountain biking. I think a lot of people probably have fallen off. There's a lot of people like myself who've been riding my whole life. I'm 30. I'm like getting enough years into riding that I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty tuned up on like what brands what and what they're about and what they're doing. And even if they try to spin something, I'm kind of like, nah, like that's what they are. And I'm more intrigued by more niche things that are different, exciting, whatever it might be, you know, like kind of like that's what I think about when I hear like, oh yeah, like dad cams and 16 mil stuff. Like it's edgier and different looking. Doesn't maybe necessarily need to be super new, but like it's harder to kind of like, you know, you're not getting like fooled in a way, it seems, by brands. Like that seems like that's what I keep going back to in my head with all of these embargo things is like all this energy and time put behind launching something and then just everybody kind of shits on it. And like I feel bad about it for a brand because I have the unique opportunity where I get to go meet, you know, like people like yourself, Lars, when you were at Transition. And I'm like, dude, everybody who's behind all the things you're writing, they are like really good people. Yeah. They are not trying to like sell you crap because obviously it's in their best interest for them to make money. They're trying to make good stuff to give you to ride. And they all are like actual mountain bikers. Pretty much everybody at every brand I've met, there's a couple people there that like, they get it. They know it's cool, all of that stuff. And like, sure, there's times where that doesn't come through in a launch and it gets a little bit lost. But yeah, I like those points about, yeah, you know, people are kind of seeing the forest through the trees sort of vibe. Like you got to be more creative in getting that message across to like be more genuine and like, I guess, core to people in a little bit of a way. Yeah, it's interesting. Do we
well, I have a question for you guys. Probably primarily you, Jason, because you're out and about doing those activities a bit more. Do you or have you felt obligated in the past to speak favorably about something because X, Y, and Z brand has spent so much money on bringing you to an exotic location to do this whole product launch exercise, wine and dine you? You know, you go through the whole process and you're like, you know, it's almost more about the experience than like the thing.
100%.
And then you go home and it's like, you kind of can't, because it is like a bit of a trick, you know? Yes. It's like let's plant this seed about this like really positive experience.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the being, like in my mind, that's being good at my job, is being able to separate those two things. Because even if people aren't like actively saying things to try to persuade what Vital's official opinion is going to be about something, 100%, if you get flown somewhere, you already are being influenced, right? Like kind of all of those things do play a part in that. And I think I was really sensitive to that when I first started because I didn't want to be like I don't know. Like I felt like I was really passionate about being a mountain biker, and I had bought most of my stuff throughout my racing career even, that I was like, I don't want to be like selling people shit they don't need. You know, like that's always been kind of one of my North Stars with like reviewing stuff. It's like, do you actually need this or not? And it is tough when you go to, I mean, to be fair, coming to Bellingham, hanging out with you guys, it's not like we rode, we were hanging out. I was like, everybody at Transition's like so cool. They're so nice. Everything's like, I really as a mountain biker align with the brand. So then how do I, when I go back home, I have to be really like hard on myself to make sure that I'm looking at it very like,
Diplomatic.
yes,
Objectively,
like,
yep.
objectively,
Yeah.
yes, that's what I was
Yeah.
looking for. Like I'm really weighing it all out and kind of looking at it as like, is this something I would buy? Is this adding to like an experience that people are after, and all of those things? But dude, for sure. I mean, I flew business class to Croatia for a Shimano e-bike thing, and we rode 2 days, and like it was insane. It was super cool, but like I got home and immediately was like, can I please get a test bike? Because I need like more time on it to have meaningful insight into this for people to know about. And I mean, that we could probably talk about press camps as like a whole other topic, and you know, the purpose they serve. And I find it really interesting, as you've been kind of mentioning, Lars, just like the money that goes into it. And like, I'm always like, is this money maybe not better spent doing something else? Or like, I still think the most important thing with any new product is just spending time on it, you know? Like,
Totally.
I mean, you can go online or go in our tech forum, and if somebody has owned a bike, they are going to know more about it than I do, because they've had 6 months, a year on it. The only way you learn really well about something, like a lot about something, is living with it day in and day out, and that being like your only focus.
For sure.
You know, like,
For sure.
and so if I always go by hours is like the easiest way for me to like log how much experience I have with something, you know. And if I go to a press camp and we ride for 4 hours, I'm like, I didn't really, you know, I could have had one thing going on that I was struggling. Like, say my shock isn't set up right, I'm not going to learn anything about the rest of the bike. I'm going to be focused on getting the shock set up. And so,
yeah, not to mention the fact that most of the time you're on trails you've never ridden. So you don't
yes.
even know what the terrain is like or how to even ride the trail aggressively, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. There's that matched with, you know, you're getting a lot of information about something that's completely new to you from people that it's all they've been focused on for a couple years, which is really great because you have all the access. But then trying to sift through a lot of like marketing BS sometimes to like pull out what are people going to latch on to, what is, you know, what are people actually going to care about with this thing. Yeah, and I get it all though, you know, like I maybe don't have like, oh, it should be like this or it should be like that. I definitely think that we're shifting more towards being a part of press camps when we really feel like they're meaningful. We're going to really get a lot of time on the product, and it's something really new and exciting that we need to be there to have access to those people one-on-one. Like, there's a lot of benefits to all those things. Most of the time though, like, I live in Southern California, it's kind of unique terrain. It's way more beneficial for me to like get product, ride it on trails I know. It's way more efficient, like all of those things. Which kind of goes back to embargoes, where like on our end, a lot of times what happens is like I'll be planning some e-bike test for March, and then somebody will be like, hey, we actually have all new forks and shocks coming on March 4th, right in the middle of the week when you're trying to do this e-bike test. And then I'm like, oh God, like, do I try to get it and ride it beforehand? Do we go to the press camp? But that's going to be limited time and more of like a tech article and a first look, or we do a podcast with somebody and try to get all the information in there and ask the questions people want to know. And it's, you know, we're not the main focus for a brand launching something. I totally get that, but we definitely get put in a bit of a interesting pickle sometimes where we want to be involved, brands want us involved, but there isn't always the time given to cover something correctly, I feel. it's what we balance all the time. It's like the proactive versus reactive content creation.
For sure.
It's like the way I look at it.
Is there
yeah.
is there any this is interesting. Like, I'm genuinely curious. Is there any fear from your perspective of going to, say, a press camp, and I'll pose a scenario. You go to X press camp. It's very obvious there's a boatload of money being spent on this thing. You go test the product, and you're like, "This is terrible." like I don't get it, or like it's just not. it's missing the mark, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is there fear that if you speak unfavorably, if you're honest about it and you speak unfavorably about it, that you're not going to be invited the next time?
I never think
like
about
you're excommunicated. Like, is it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's why I'm asking. And I think listeners, these are the things that I think that people that that are not involved in the industry side, like, they really want to know, like, what is that actually like? How do those relationships work? And like, what is
I've never had that happen. And usually for me, say I go ride a new e-bike and I'm like, for the travel amount, the geo is way off. I don't know what the heck you guys were going for here. If I'm at a press camp, I usually try to find the person who knows the most about the bike. And I'm like, hey, I have some like pretty strong issues and like kind of complaints. Like, can you give me some responses to these so that I know where you guys are at? So that if I put an opinion out into the internet, that I'm not catching the brand off guard, I guess. Like, they've had a chance to kind of provide that info. Like, if I'm like, yeah, this head angle should have been 64.5, but they went with 67 because they think this, at least their reasoning is in there, but I'm going to be like, this is Vital's opinion as to like why we didn't like this. And I mean, maybe it's like the punk in me. It's kind of like the more I see like the dog and pony show and the song and dance happening with like a press camp, I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, can we just ride the bike, and like, I don't need to create a bunch of content, or like, like, why don't we just go do a bunch of laps? And like, I don't know, like I never really worry about that. And I think that we have a lot of like ability with Vital to say what we want, like, we go to a bunch of press camps that are with brands that aren't paying us any money. We go to press camps with brands that are paying us money. Like, I approach them, or other contributors that go, I tell them to approach them all the same, like, I want to be giving feedback on something the same way. If I had a friend that has money in their hand that they worked hard for, they want to spend, like, what do I buy with this? And I'm like, oh, okay, like, is this actually worth you buying it or not? I'm trying to think if there's like really anything around press camp type stuff that's been like, was like awkward or weird or anything like that, because I mean, I'm totally working with Vital in the era of like everything being pretty good, I would say. Like, it's really uncommon that I go to a press event or we get a new bike that's under embargo that's like, oh, this thing sucks. Like, that almost never happens. And probably the last time there was something even remotely like bad is when we did that SLE bike test, and that one brand that was pretty obscure.
Carbon with a K?
Yes, that bike. And we like, it wasn't that good. It wasn't as good compared to the other bikes. And like, over email, the individual had a lot of reasoning of why it was good. And I was like, it's fine if that's what you think. Like, this, we wrote it and this is what we thought compared to the bikes you rode. And like, that happens all the time. Like, there totally is disagreement with brands on things, but a dog was barking. But finishing that thought, it's hard to put out opinions that are like very against what the brand is saying. And I think that maybe is something that maybe we don't like strive for all the time, but like, I don't want to just be like regurgitating what brands are saying, especially when we go to press events and there's like, not seeming like we're just swayed to say what the brand is putting out there. Yeah, I don't know. We don't.
And
Hasn't been a whole lot of beef since I've been with Vital.
if Jason goes to a press camp and the product's a dog, but he praises it, and it's, I mean, even for people who don't ride it can tell it's a dog, it doesn't do Vital or Jason any good to say something that's bad is good.
Right.
That hurts our reputation. Like, who's going to want to trust us if he's like,
and
this is great?
credibility. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, at
Fair
the at the top of my Vital planner for the last 4 years, the goal says grow Vital, grow credibility, be responsible with how mountain biking is depicted. That's like the everyday plan, you know, and exactly that. If, you know, I mean, Di2 came out this year. I think there's a lot of great things about it. I personally wouldn't run it on my bike, and I put that out there into the world. And like, I love everybody at Shimano. They're all really good people. They're all trying really hard to put good stuff out there. That's the way it is. Like, that's what we thought of it, you know? Like, I'm still running transmission on my bike. That's how it is. It happens, you know? Like,
yeah.
And yeah, it's a fun, you know, we're unaffiliated. That's the whole title of this podcast. You know, we're just trying to cover bikes in the most genuine way we can.
I mean, it is like, I mean, the way I see it is it's kind of like investigative journalism to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like which is sweet. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Spomer, quick question for you.
Yeah.
Timeline wise, Litter Mag to Vital, what's that? Those date stamps, just out of curiosity. And
So
this is a two-part question, but this is helpful.
Okay, first Litter Mag was a print magazine only that came out at the end of 03, maybe early 04. It covered the 03 season. And then I got all hot and bothered to do video stuff, so I made Clapping Your Dome in there and other things. Then I went to Decline in 05 and 06. After Decline,
Right.
I'm like, I'm just gonna do litter online. And I think I called it, oh, maybe this is backwards. Litter was print, did Clapping Your Dome, and then did Litter OLS, online supplements, which was just issues that were online, and tried to sell like ad space. And Billy at Manitou, rest in peace, he gave me a couple $100. I think Saplavia over at Iron Horse helped me out a little bit, but then it just sucked. I'm not a salesperson. And then Hart got me over at Decline, and I was shooting photos independently throughout that whole time. Was at Decline, then moved on from Decline and put Litter back online, I think, and did it more sort of like how Vital is now, is like a, what do you call it? Like a hub, or kind of like a aggregating sort of website. Tried that for, I think, 07 and 08. Went to Interbike, tried to sell ads. Dane Zafke, he was at WTB at the time, I think. He was super nice. But I think I had 2 meetings, flubbed it. I'm like, this sucks. I'm just spending my money. I don't want to do this anymore. And basically was going to quit and start looking for full-time work. And then Matt Thompson told me about Vital MX and how they were doing slideshows. And I knew Vital MX, I knew Vital BMX, they had Vital Skate. And so I just threw an email out to info@vitalmedianet or whatever, saying, hey, I see you guys do BMX and moto. I do mountain biking and slideshows. It's kind of in the middle. Like, you want to talk about something? And Brad wrote me back, and over a couple months of talking, it worked out. And so just MTB turned on in July 1st of 09, I think. So
Okay.
that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Got it. Okay, so part 2 here.
Okay.
At what point through that process did like the product embargo formula template, you know, press launch, press camp thing, when did that start to become a thing in relation to that timeline?
I never touched product stuff with Litter Mag at all. I just cared about racing and taking pictures, dirt jump, whatever. At Decline, I realized, like, I learned all that stuff because Mark Jordan was there and he was the product editor, and understood, like, oh, okay, product comes out, there's an embargo or a press camp. And with magazines at the time, it was way easier because there were 4 or 5 magazines. Mark would always go to one. So I learned about that then. And I think the press camp model made sense back then. But then starting at Vital, I had to get involved in product. And here's a story I tell people sometimes. Like, I would go to Sea Otter, and I was used to like, okay, it's Thursday. I'm going out to hang out on the downhill track for 4 hours to shoot practice, because that's what I've done for the last 15 years or whatever. And Brad, boss, and Todd, sales guy, they're like, yeah, but we got to go through the pits. We got to talk to everyone in the booths. I'm like, why? For what? Like, it was just oblivious to me. And we did that. And I remember being so miserable that first Sea Otter, because I'm like, what? I got to go to the booths and talk product? Like, I don't care about any of this stuff. I want to go to the racing. But
You're still miserable when we do that.
yeah, sometimes it's better now because I know so many more people. But
Yeah.
Long story short, that's kind of when I started understanding, like, oh, okay, we have to cover product. It's super valuable, whatever. And yeah, I think I even went to like a camp. I think I went to like a Trek camp in 2010 in Moab. It was super fun, but I was also like, dude, I'm over my head. Like, everyone's such good riders. Like, I can, I can hang and have fun, but I'm not reviewing bikes. And I think Brandon ended up coming on. But the early, like, let's say 2011 until COVID, basically, press camps were always a thing. And I didn't mind them until maybe a year or two before COVID started happening, where it was this question of, is this the best use of our time? Because it takes staff person away for 3 days a week or whatever for one piece of content. And then, like we've talked about, the perception from the audience of, they got flown across the world. Of course, they're going to say it's a good bike. Like, is that worth our time? Then COVID killed them all, which was sweet. I feel like that's when the reviews were the best, because we couldn't get
Right.
together. Brands would send us bikes, and then you could have get your testing done on trails that you were familiar with and take your time to do it. And now post COVID, they're starting to come back and they're becoming a thing again. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm still basically anti press camp, but I know that's kind of not the reality of what we do. So,
Right. Yeah. So, real quick, an aside, one of those first years at Sea Otter, I guess with Vital, would have been the year that I parked my rental van out front of your guys' place in Monterey. You and MT went.
yeah.
You guys had a little rental house,
Okay.
and I parked my van like out front because I was just like, I had driven a van down from Port Angeles.
Okay.
And was like, that was also my accommodations for all of Sea Otter.
Dude, that's awesome.
And you guys were like, and I think I poached a shower a couple times. And,
okay. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Those days, it sucks. I don't remember so much stuff, but
Totally.
I'm sure Matt and Steve would be like, yeah, come hang out. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I think that's a good segue to, like, some of Jason's notes here. Like, is a big launch effective? Are we better off doing it a different way?
I feel like we've touched on that whole, maybe the big launch isn't always the most effective anymore, at least in the way we see things going. Like, it, yeah, people might see through it. People might think it's, bought content. And then on our end, if it's some big extravagant launch, it probably means there's a lot of different editors invited. And then that means there's just less one-on-one time. It's just more people to move around at a press camp, like the amount of things I've gone to where there's like 30 editors, which is like, that's a lot of people.
So
Think
many.
about dude, if you have 30 riders, you can basically assume there's like one other person for every like 2 people or so, whether that's someone from the brand, somebody organizing the ride, somebody, like, it can be nuts how many people are on trail.
Oh, that's a guaranteed mess. Right,
dude. all it takes is like one person to crash, one person to get a flat, and like, it can throw all those things off.
Have you been to a launch where there was a major catastrophe like that just fully
fully
derailed
we did
everything?
leave OSL. Alan Cook broke his arm behind me, and that actually didn't throw a wrench in any of it. It was gnarly. Like,
he rolled with it.
Yeah, like it was our last day of riding, and he was with Specialized and like our guide and kind of liaison for everything. He organized the whole press event, and it was a small group of us, and we were riding near my house. It was a Southern California one, And yeah, it was the last day, and I felt so bad because he was like, oh, like, is there somewhere else we should try to go ride? And I'm like, we can go to this spot. And then first lap in, like maybe 30 feet into the trail, he managed to like wedge his wheel between these two awkward rocks and just flip the bars like out of nowhere, and like fully snapped his forearm,
Ugh.
but like it didn't look that bad. And he rode the road back down, and then he was like, oh, like, I'm just gonna, we were actually right near a hospital. Like, it was all
I
really
just tweaked
convenient.
it.
Yeah. Well, we're like, I have a photo of like Lear Miller was there shooting photos. He's a good friend of mine. He's done stuff with Vital, and I have a photo of Lear kind of like poking it, you know, like trying to be like, does it hurt here? Does it hurt there? And he went to the hospital while we like went and rode more and got lunch. And then some people went off to the airport, and like later that day, he sent a photo of it just like fully broken, and then a couple hours later, like a photo with a plate on it, like all same day.
Dang.
It was pretty gnarly. But no, like I've had gear not show up, and that was kind of a pain in the butt. I had to like go buy a bunch of stuff at a shop.
Like your gear.
Yeah,
while
like
you
my
were
personal
traveling.
gear.
Yeah.
But I've never really had anything like super wild happen, you know? There's definitely been a few where there's just so many people and it's so slow moving that like I think the plan for the day kind of goes south and everybody ends up a little bit grumpy, you know? Sometimes like the European ones are interesting because like European editors are a bit of a different breed and like focus on different things, it seems, and their like pace with stuff is different. But yeah, I don't know. Nothing too crazy, unfortunately. I wish I had like some epic story. I mean, the Shimano one I did in Croatia, we tried to take a boat ride the first day, and I was like, I think I'm fine on boats. I don't think I'll get or seasick. And like we go out in the morning, and it's like a medium-sized boat. I don't know, maybe like 40 feet, 50 feet. I don't really know boat sizes. It wasn't like huge, and it wasn't like we weren't like shoulder to shoulder, right?
Think about it in relation to a jump.
That's actually pretty good.
The crab
okay,
apple
yeah, it
hit?
was probably like it was probably like it was like the whip jump on crab apple. It was about that size. But we like are leaving the little kind of bay area and looking out towards like the sea, I guess it would be because we were in Croatia. It's just like ripping wind, like the craziest like wake waves I've ever seen. And I'm like, are we like cool to go through that? Like, what's this gonna be like? And then it just turned into an hour and a half of everybody trying not to throw up. And then we like got to another island and they were like, oh, we're gonna go e-bike around this island now. And yeah, that was pretty gnarly. I swear I spent like the first hour pedaling just like regaining consciousness and like not being all woozy, you know? And they're like, how's the auto shift? And I'm like, dude, I feel fine, thank you.
Lars, have you ever been in the situation, if you've hosted a camp where you ask the question of Jason having to say something negative, for lack of a better term, about the product of the camp? Have you ever been in a situation as a host of a camp where an editor or someone brought over totally didn't get along with the product or was, in disagreement with philosophy and things on what you were launching?
Nothing that really stands out. I would say I'm fortunate in that most of the way we approach things at Transition, like things were pretty dialed. We had like at least our story, the product pretty buttoned up, and I think being a smaller brand, you're so immersed in that thing, and then also like throughout the development process, that also being the person that is like the one on hand during the camp, it's kind of like you don't have to, like, if an editor comes to you with a question or a technical, any aspect of it, it's not like you had to go ask somebody else about it, so to be able to like interface like directly and be the one to respond with the information needed, I think was always like super rad. And critical. But like, I don't recall ever, I mean, other than just like I said, like the self-doubt, because like you can believe in something wholeheartedly, but I think it's good to always have that, like, well, is it really? Am I just tripping right now? Like, yeah, that's probably
Okay.
That's my answer there. Yeah.
Yep.
Spomer, have we ever blown an embargo? I couldn't think of any like catastrophic ones where we put something out before it was supposed to, but
I don't think so. Nothing that would give me nightmares, enough to remember. So maybe by an hour or something, like with a European time versus our time, that kind of confusion, but nothing super crazy.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I couldn't I think that the worst I've done is like we can schedule something where on the homepage it's there, but if you click it, it doesn't actually link anywhere. And I accidentally didn't schedule the homepage, but I scheduled the content. So like it was on the homepage, but it didn't go anywhere. And Kaz of all people texted me. He was like, "Your thing's live on the homepage." I'm like, shit, thank you. But I don't even remember if it was like super pressing. And that was actually a thought I just had is like, we're definitely looking at this from like new bikes, new drivetrain, new brakes, but we deal with like videos and just general press releases. Like everything is embargoed we kind of deal with, which people probably know. But like, if you see a video come out tomorrow morning, we probably saw it on our site like the previous Friday or something, which is probably a whole other thing for brands to sort out. And I mean, maybe that's the one thing we haven't touched on too much, or something I've always been sort of curious about is talking. There's 2 brands next year that have hit us up that have things coming. They make a lot of parts and they're competing brands. And one of them's like, "Hey, we have a press event the beginning of February." And then like a month later I get up and they're like, this other brand's like, "Hey, we have a press event the end of February." Do you know about other brands launching stuff? Like we've seen, I think the best one this year was the Podium launched the same day Formula, I think, launched a fork. Like just terrible. I mean, you would say terrible timing for Formula. Like they're getting overshadowed by the most talked about single crown fork ever, maybe, But like, do brands chat about when they have something coming to make sure they're not coinciding with another launch?
I would say yes and no. At a high level, I think the industry is like way smaller than I think most people think, and way more of a tight knit group. And there are a lot more friends cross brands than you might think. But if you do your job, if you do your job right, like you have to protect your intellectual property, right? And so like X person from X brand is not going to say, "Hey, we also have one of those," But there are situations where like, there could be a major component on a bike, especially these days with like the e-bike systems, that's definitely introducing an aspect of like, there's something new to the market, and that a bunch of brands, like it's being shopped around to a bunch of brands.
Yeah.
Like a system, for example, and it's like trying to be first to market, can definitely, again, create complications and challenges trying to bring a product, because it's like, do you want to be the first, or do you want to be like the middle? Because like, do you want to let somebody else, do you want to beat everybody to the punch, or do you want to let somebody else kind of like bear the brunt of the load of something?
Yeah, like guinea pig or not.
Yeah, totally. And like you kind of get a sense of waters, so to speak. But yeah, the rumor mill abounds for sure. Yeah. So like that and sifting through that is definitely challenging, because being a small industry, things kind of through what's the Kevin Bacon movie, 6
degrees of Kevin Bacon.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like it's gonna filter through some, in some way. And so like you would hear, being at a brand about to launch something, you definitely hear about other competitors that are going to launch something similar.
And I've had a couple times over the years, like it's not very frequent, but a smaller brand might hit me up and be like, "Hey, we're planning a launch on X date. Do you know if anything else is coming out then?" And it's never, as far as I remember, it's never been a conflict. But yeah, they'll ask, Yeah,
I think I remember one time getting an email about whether it's like a press camp or an embargo date, and then like a day or two later, and realizing, oh, this coincides with something else, and then right after that, getting a follow up, and then just being like, "Hey, we we heard that this conflicts with some other brands
Mhm.
doing stuff, so we're going to shift it around.
Yep.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so when you were at Transition, you guys were a part of SRAM's powertrain launch, and that was kind of a slightly different embargoed launched product where it was an e-bike system launched with different brands. Was that like, did that feel like you lost some of the thunder because you were you were with other brands launching something, or is it you want to be with SRAM and their new thing that was more valuable?
Mm, I think this is like safe territory to speak to because it's so, it's in the past,
Mhm.
right? But we were aware that there were X amount of other brands that were going to do it. And it was a very small pool of
Mhm.
other brands, like you're in the club, so to speak.
It was like 5 or something, maybe.
It was 5. Yeah.
Are, dude, do any
and
exist except Transition now? Like it was, no, I'm serious. Like
Uh,
Nuke, wasn't it not KHS? What's the red bike the red and
Oh,
white?
gas.
Yeah, gas.
To your point, Spomer, we knew enough to know that we were, of the 5 brands, we were the only brand that was not associated with something flammable. Propane, nuke,
Oh, yeah, propane.
nuke proof,
Yeah.
gas, and oh gosh, what was it?
Was there
Yeah,
another
there was
one?
one other one.
Maybe there was, it was 4 or 5. I can't remember.
That's
But
hilarious.
that was like, I remember getting to a certain point that we were like, yes, we're not explosive.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was I just thought that one was interesting. I mean, I guess it's the same as when brands wait for a new fork or shock to launch something. What about, I mean, kind of talking about e-bikes and like, yeah, like the waiting for the latest, greatest thing to have on your bike. Like, how would you guys approach something like that? Or like, that just seems like such a challenge, like we've seen it kind of with like Bosch seems to be the kind of go-to system right now, but they've had different generations. And like, I want to say maybe it was Pivot came out with one of their models a year or two ago, and they're updating just the motor, or maybe like there's been a few brands where it's like the bike's the same, we just have the new motor now, and like that's kind of the launch where I don't know, that seems like a really tough space to navigate. Like, at what point do we just put this thing out there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like the e-bike thing has definitely created like a massive division in how you approach a product in general, right?
Mhm.
And you can kind of split it into 2 different types of customers, which is like one customer A is like either the bike as an entire package, like and I want that because of all of the aspects, or like I want that because it has X, Y, or Z system, right?
Mhm.
And people tend to fall in different camps,
It's like the DJI wave right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like that like I can speak to that because most of that I have like observed on my own outside of being associated with a brand, which is everybody's clamoring, that's all the talk. And especially living in Bellingham, there's like multiple brands here, multiple people that I ride with that are associated with different brands. And so like, that's definitely the chatter, a lot of times on bike rides is like, well, who so-and-so is like, using the system. And I definitely wouldn't say it's like a race to the bottom, but it is definitely just like it's accelerating like the way in which people are clamoring for like, oh, the latest and greatest. The one thing I will say to that, the other side of the coin is that like I still own one of the bikes that I owned when I left Transition is my repeater powertrain. And that bike is beat to high hell. And like I actually riding last week, I exploded an aluminum King Creek headset cup, like landing, like, and I don't even know how that physically happens. Like landed in a huge, like it was a massive audible noise. Johnny from Transition was behind me, and he was like, "Was that your Achilles?" And then like I realized I rode for a moment, and I was like, I don't know what the heck that was, and you're kind of questioning like, is the bottom of your bike gonna fall out, from underneath you? And then I realized that like, it wasn't like my stem was loose or my headset was loose, and then all of a sudden it was just flopping around,
Crazy shit.
and the upper flush part, the top hat part of the headset cup had sheared from the base cup.
That's
and
wild.
It's all under compression, so I don't even understand how that happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the bike is pretty clapped, but I still love it. Like it's a sick bike, and there's an aspect of like I'm just a mountain biker now, and like I'm not gonna go drop however many thousands of dollars. Not that I have that to spend on a new bike right now, but still, like, that bike is just fine. Like I can go do everything else that everybody else does on the new fancy bikes.
Yeah.
It makes me think about, as we like look into the future of new products and embargo dates and getting really excited about something on a given day, and like that this is the day, the new thing is coming. It's harder for that. It seems like it's tougher to build that excitement going forward, as things don't need to evolve drastically year after year. And I mean, it seems really tough from a brand, because obviously you need to sell stuff to make money, and you gotta be, it's in your best interest to hype up the stuff you're doing, but like, I'm liking that we're not seeing a new iteration of something every year. Like, we're gonna probably have Stump Jumper 15 for quite a few years now. I think that's a good thing, because it's good and we don't need a new one, and maybe too, I feel like it gives us more time with product to like give meaningful insight into it, and then like kind of just rushing to get something out when it launches. And then it kind of makes an awkward space for us to like, do we get this bike again and like do more testing with it? Because a lot of times it's like, we ride it for 5 days, you kind of learn most of what you need to know about it. You might not learn little nuances that somebody owning it would uncover, but like, yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling a bit, but I think it's a good thing that bikes are sort of settling out where they are.
Yeah, and I mean, bikes are good, and I think that I love that two people could ride together. One could be on the most modern, latest and greatest bike, and somebody could be on a 5 or 10-year-old bike, and you're still having the same experience, And I think we're kind of, I don't know how to tie this up, but like, I think that we're getting to the point where, like, to your point, Jason, that like, you don't have to have the newest and latest and greatest to like have a good time. Like, we live in an amazing era of mountain biking where everything from the past 5 or 10 years still does the same thing for the most part, and I don't like the thought of somebody feeling like they're less than because they don't have the newest thing, Like, I don't like thinking that, but I think there is an aspect to mountain biking that like people are kind of like feel the need to like get the newest and latest and greatest, so that they're like can keep up with their buddies or their friends. Where
for sure.
That's always been my kind of hater mentality, but is that it's a lot easier to buy the carbon wheels than it is to just get better at riding. It's really hard to ride a mountain bike, and like progressing at it takes so much time and energy.
Yeah.
I think I'll just buy XX1 instead of GX, But yeah. Well, anything else with embargoes we want to add? Seemed pretty cool.
Yeah, seemed dialed.
We rambled a bit. There's a lot of angles to it, but
yeah.
I don't know if I fully answered my question of, are we better off doing it a different way? But I think there's a lot to chew on there about how brands or us can just maybe even like approach new product launches in the future,
Yeah.
Sweet.
And I think anyone listening, like, if you've got feedback, let us know. Be cool to hear thoughts. I'm sure there's stuff we haven't thought about. So
yes,
absolutely.
100%. we're looking at it from the bubble of media and maybe the bubble of a brand. So really what matters is the consumer at the end of the day, the people digesting what we're both putting out there.
Let the people speak.
That's
Yes.
right. Right.
The people are always right.
Yeah.